From this lesson onward, we will be working on our fun facts app. So let's get started. So open up your terminal or command prompt, and now let's create a new Flutter project. So Flutter create app name, organization, and then organization identifier. Once the project has been created, let's open it in our VS Code. So now let's move into this lib directory, main.dart, clear everything so we can start from the scratch. So let's create the entry point void main, and inside of it we will have this run app from this material.dart, and this will have a class myApp. Alright, so now let's create this class stf stateful widget. Now Control D to select everything and rename this to myApp. Alright, and now let's create a new file for the main screen because we do not want to keep everything inside of this main.dart. So new file main screen.dart, and it would be better if we can place this inside of a screens folder. So screens, and let's keep this dart file inside of this screens. Alright, and now let's move into this main.dart again, and now let's replace this placeholder with the material app, and the home argument of this material app will be the main screen. So the main screen class is not created, so let's move into this main screen.dart, create a stateful widget. So stf, select everything and change this to main screen. So now let's move into this main.dart and import this main screen. So now the basic setup has been complete, and in this Flutter project we will be dealing with APIs. So let's import do package. So open up your terminal and type flutter pub add do. So now let's launch the emulator and start debugging. So now let's provide a theme to this material app. So theme equals to theme data.light, and let's use material 3 over here. So now let's move into this main screen.dart, and let's replace this placeholder with an scaffold with the app bar fun facts. So now I want a settings icon over here, so I can open the settings page. So let's access this actions argument of this app bar, and let's create an icon over here. So icons.settings, and now we need a little bit of padding over here. So let's wrap this with the padding widget, and when this icon is clicked, I want to open up a new page. So let's wrap it with an inkwell widget, and on tap argument of this inkwell will have an anonymous function for now. Alright, so let's create a new screen, settings underscore screen.dart stf, and then rename it to settings screen. Alright, so let's move into this main screen, and let's use the navigator over here. So navigator dot push, and the first argument is context, second argument will be the material page route, and this builder will be a function, callback function with the callback value of context, and from inside of it we need to return this settings screen. So let's move into the settings screen. So if I click at this button, settings screen is being displayed, but it's showing this placeholder. So let's replace it with a scaffold. So let's import this, and now let's use an app bar over here with the text widget settings. So we have the settings page. If this icon is clicked, then settings page will open, and we'll be working on the settings page later, but first we'll be working on displaying fun facts in our main screen, and we'll be doing that in our next lesson. So I'll see you there. In this lesson we'll be working with displaying fun facts in our main screen. So let's navigate into this main screen.dart, and let's create a list of facts over here. So list, and then the data type will be string, and the variable name will be facts equals to an empty list. Alright, and I prepared some facts that you can use on this list. So navigate into github.com/susandstc, move into repositories, and here search for Flutter, and you'll be getting this Flutter dummy data over here. Click at it, and inside of this repository you can find a JSON data, funfacts.json. Open it, and here you can see the list of strings over here. Select everything, copy it. Now move into VS Code and replace this empty list with the list of facts. Alright, and now let's create a list view for displaying this data. So in this scaffold body, let's provide a list view builder, and this item builder is a callback function with build context and index, which is an integer, and this callback function needs to return a widget. So let's keep a text widget with the dummy text over here. So now we have this unlimited dummy text. So let's provide item count over here so that we can restrict the count of this list data, and this is equals to the length of this facts list. So facts.length. Alright, so now we have a limited render of list data. So let's replace this dummy text with the actual text in our facts list. And now we have a list of facts in our list view builder. Alright. But the design of our app is not too great. Instead of displaying all the facts in a list view, I want to display only one fact at a time, and I want users to swipe left to reveal other facts. And for that, Flutter has an inbuilt widget called Page View Builder. So here, instead of using List View Builder, I'll change this to Page View Builder. This widget is exactly like List View Builder, and it is constructed exactly like List View with item builder, item count and such. But in this Page View Builder, only one data of list is shown at a time, and we have a swipe ability here to switch between the pages. So now let's work on decorating this text widget a little bit. So let's wrap this text widget with container, center and little bit of padding. So the alignment of this text widget seems alright. And now let's increase the font size of this text using style argument text style, and font size equals to 35. And let's align this text in the center. So for that, let's use this text align argument and set it to text align.center. Now at the bottom of this screen, I want to display some text like swipe left for more. For that, I need to wrap this page view with the column widget. And as this page view builder is similar to list view, it also wants to take up all the space available on the screen, but column will only allow a limited space, right? So when I saved the code, my debugger has paused due to layout exception, and we need to fix that. But first, let me move into this debug tab and uncheck this onCut exception so that our debugger does not pause every time on exception. Alright. So now let's hot restart the app. And now you can see some issues in debug console, and this can be fixed by wrapping this widget with the expanded widget. So we restrict the flow of this page view builder. Alright. And now let's add a new children into this column. So this children is a container with a child text widget swipe left for more. Alright. And now let's provide a little bit of padding over here. So now the user can swipe the screen left or right to view the content. This is like a Facebook story, right? In Facebook stories, you can swipe to view more stories, right? So now you know how that is created. Now you can also decide the swiping direction of this page view builder. Currently we are swiping horizontally, but you can change that using scroll direction argument of this page view builder. So scroll direction, and this argument expects axis. So it can be axis.horizontal or vertical. And if I set it to axis.vertical, then the scroll of this page view builder will be changed to vertical direction. So now instead of it acting as Facebook story, we are getting the TikTok vibe over here. But we want the horizontal scrolling, so let's change this to axis.horizontal. Alright. So now we have this perfect fun facts viewer created. But there's one tiny issue with our app, and that is our user will quickly run out of all the fun facts as we have limited data on this list. So instead of hard coding this list, we'll be building a simple dummy read-only API to use it in our app. It's not an actual API, but it will act as an API for getting fresh content every now and then. And we'll create that using GitHub. Sounds exciting? I'll see you at the next lesson. In this lesson, we'll be creating a dummy read-only API through GitHub for getting data in our Fun Facts app. Now, GitHub is not for creating APIs, but there's a little bit of workaround, and we'll have a look at it shortly. The reason for creating this API is to allow our app to fetch new fun facts every now and then when we make changes to the fun facts online or in our read-only API. So currently we have this list of fun facts hard-coded in our app, and eventually user will run out of these fun facts. Meaning that if they see all of these fun facts in our list, they will no longer be able to see any new fun facts that we add. And if we need to make addition to these fun facts, we need to add it to this list and then rebuild the app, redistribute the app to every user who is using it, or push update to the Play Store or App Store if you are thinking to keep it there. That's a lot of hassle. Instead, we'll be creating a new dummy read-only API for using it in our app, and using that API, we can provide new fresh fun facts to our users. So let's get started by creating this dummy read-only API through GitHub. So navigate into github.com and log in your account. If you have not created an account, it's time to create one. After login, click at this plus icon and select new repository. Now we need to select the repository name, and I'll be keeping it flutter_dummy_API, and you cannot use any special characters or spaces over here, just the plain text, numbers, underscore and such. Alright. So once you select this repository name, you will be getting this available message. So now you can continue. Write a simple description and make sure you set this to public because our app should be able to access it. Alright. And you do not need to change anything here. Click at create repository. So when the repository is created, there are a lot of things that needs to be done, like adding data to the repository, committing, pushing and so on. But as we will be only creating a simple file, instead of using all these commands, let's create a new file by clicking at this creating a new file. And I'll be naming this file as facts.json. So this will be the JSON file which will act as an API. Alright. So let's move into the VS Code. So now let's copy these facts, everything inside of this big brackets and big brackets as well. Alright. So copy it and paste it in this new file. Now click at commit changes and confirm the changes. So click at commit changes. Alright. So here you can see this file is created. So click at this file and now click this raw button to get the raw file or the JSON file from this GitHub project. So in this URL we have a JSON data and we can use this JSON data in our Flutter app for getting the list of fun facts. Alright. So let's move into our app and let's paste this just as a comment for now. Alright. So this is an API URL and I'll be keeping this URL here for using it later. Alright. So this is what I mean by dummy read-only API. This is like sending a GET request into the server and getting a JSON data in response. And I'm referring to this URL as read-only API because user will not be able to modify data in this API or this JSON file, right? But as we are the repository owner of this file, we can modify it from GitHub. And we'll have a look at it later. So as the list data will now be fetched from the API, we no longer need this preloaded list. So clear everything and make it an empty list. Now let's import DO package so we can make requests to an API. So now let's create a function over here. So void get data and inside of it there will be a response data type response variable equals to DO package dot get, and to get the data we'll be using this get request and I'll be passing this URL over here. And this requires some time, so let's create an await statement here. And as this is await, this should be of async type. And we are not sure if this request succeeds or fails, so let's wrap it with a try catch block. So if this request is successful and we get the data, then we'll assign a value to this fact. So facts equals to response.data. And we also need to make state aware of it, so let's use set state over here. So now let's save the changes. And now we need to call this get data function in our init state so that data is fetched automatically on app start. So let's create an init state over here. And here we will be calling this get data. So now let's hot restart the app and see if we have any issues. So we have an issue in the response. In debug console it mentioned that response to data should be of list but is of type string. So I suppose this URL gives string instead of JSON. No worries. We can make it compatible JSON by wrapping it with JSON decode. And this JSON decode needs to be imported from .convert. Alright. And we cannot be so sure that this list data will contain only the string, so let's keep it dynamic. Alright. So let's hot restart the app now. So now the app has restarted, get data is called, and here we have this list from our API. If you are not getting this data in your PSV builder, then look out for errors in debug console. Alright. So what I want to do now is that I want to show a loading state over here when the API is being called. So for that let's create a boolean over here. So bool is loading equals to, let's set it to true. So now let's move into this page view builder at the center of the page. And so if this is loading, so is loading equals to true, then we will be displaying a center widget with the child progress indicator, circular progress indicator, right? And if this is false, we'll be displaying this page view builder. So as this value is set to true, we'll be getting the circular indicator here. So here if the request is successful, then I want to change this is loading to false. And to notify UI, set state is already here. And in case of error, I want to set this is loading to false as well. Alright. So let me hot restart the app again. So now the app has restarted. We are seeing the circular indicator, and when the request is successful, we are getting this page view builder. Alright. So now let's navigate into our GitHub repository. So here we have this facts.json. If you are having trouble navigating into it, you can click at this icon and move into your repositories, and you can get the list of repositories here. So click at it, move to this facts.json. And now click this edit icon, and from here you can change the contents of this file. So let's remove everything and let's keep two new strings over here. Click at commit change, confirm the change, and you might be getting this alert. Click at OK or cancel, doesn't matter. To make sure if this file has been updated, move into your repository again and have a look at this file. So when you make a change to a file in GitHub directly, then this raw data will take around 5 minutes to show the changes. So we are still getting the older data over here. Wait for 5 minutes and refresh the page. So after 5 minutes or so, this file has been updated. So now let's move into VS Code and hot restart the app. So now we have this updated data from the API. So now let's add some fun facts into our facts.json. And for getting unlimited supply of facts, you can ask ChatGPT for the fun facts. So give me 20 fun facts, simple ones in array. Array list is the same thing. When you prompt this, then ChatGPT will provide you with an array or list of data. So you can copy this list of data and update your facts.json. But make sure this file starts with the big bracket and ends with big bracket, alright? So now commit the changes, confirm the commit, and click at OK or cancel. And after 5 minutes you can see these changes in your raw data. So now the changes has been reflected. Let's move into the app, hot restart it, and see the updated fun facts. Now with the previous knowledge acquired while creating bucket list app, you can try showing error message here. You can have this try again button here, and you can make many more improvements in this app. I want you to try that. So that's it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we will be working on main part of this app, the global state management. So I'll see you at the next lesson. From this lesson onward, we will be working on global state management. To make you clear about the concept of global state management and to make our app ready for it, we'll introduce a new functionality into our app, which is a theme mode switcher. In this settings page, I want to create a switcher which can be used to change the theme mode of our app to either light mode or dark mode. So let's move into this settings screen and create a body on this scaffold. And this will have a column because it can have multiple settings, and by using column we can stack them vertically, alright? So the first child of this column will be a mode switcher. So let's create a widgets folder in this lib directory. And now inside of this widget folder, let's create a new dart file for the switcher. And I'll name it themeswitcher.dart. And now let's create a new stateful widget inside of it and rename this class to theme switcher. So now in the setting screens column, first child will be the theme switcher widget. So here we have this placeholder widget. Let's replace it with a row because I want some text widget and a switcher placed horizontally. So the first child of this row will be the text widget with the text app theme mode. And second child will be a switcher. Let's just keep text widget here for now. And the third child will be the text widget for active mode. And as we have a light mode as default, let's keep it light mode. Let's provide a little bit of padding in this widget. And here I want this app theme mode text widget on the left side, and I want other two widgets on the right side. For that, let's create a new row widget over here and move these two widgets inside of this. And now set the row alignment of this main row to space between. So main axis alignment equals to main axis alignment dot space between. And now these widgets are placed where we want them to be. So now let's change this app theme mode to theme mode only. And now let's replace this switcher text widget with an actual switcher. And for that we have this switch widget. So it has two required arguments, and the first argument is a boolean, so either true or false, which determines if the widget is checked or unchecked. Alright. Let me keep it to true for now. And the second argument is a callback function with a callback value. So now we have the switch widget in our screen, but if I click at this, it's not changing. For changing this, we need to change this value argument. If I set it to false, switch is unchecked, and if I set it to true, it's checked. So instead of hard coding true or false, I'll create a new bool variable over here with the name is checked and set it to false for now. And now let's change this false to is checked. So the value of this boolean will define if the switcher is checked or unchecked. So when a switcher is clicked, this unchanged is triggered, and this callback value will have the updated status, either true or false. So let's move inside of this callback function and set this is checked to the value of this function, and also use set state to notify state about it. So now if I click at this switcher, unchanged is triggered and the value is changed, and so the is checked variable is also changed. And now we have a working switcher here. And now I want this light mode text widget to change according to the value of is checked variable. So if the value of the switcher is checked, it means dark mode, and if not, it means light mode. Alright. So if is checked equals to true, then this is a dark mode, and if not, it's light mode. So now the text widget value is conditionally rendered. Alright. So now let's provide some spacing between these widgets. And now it's perfect. Let's make this theme mode bold. Now to make this switcher actually work and change the entire theme of our app is the main challenge of this app. And it is a complex challenge because theme can only be changed by modifying this theme data in our main.dart file. It must be changed on material app. But our theme switcher is at another screen at another file and is nested inside of another widget. And for making this work, we need to pass the data from one screen to another, onto the widget, and then into the navigator, and then another widget, and so on. It brings a whole new level of complexity in our app. If we keep lifting state, calling functions and passing data, our app will be too complex to work with. So it would be better if this isChecked value was at the top, like around here somewhere, and if all the widgets in our app were able to access, read and modify it, right? Then we would update this isChecked value directly from this theme switcher widget, and Material app will read that and update value and change theme accordingly. Then it would be much easier to work with and will minimize the complexity, right? And that is exactly what we can achieve by global state management in Flutter. We'll have a look at it in detail in our next lesson, so I'll see you there. In this lesson, we'll be understanding global state management in depth and we'll start working on it. Using global state management, we'll solve the complex challenge of updating and getting value from nested widgets or even multiple screens. To understand the challenge better, I have prepared a visual representation of our app. Let's have a look. In Flutter, an app is constructed using widgets, right? These widgets are organized in a hierarchical structure known as the widget tree. This tree represents the arrangement and nesting of various widgets forming the visual and interactive elements of our app. In our app's widget tree, we have this My App widget at the top, and then the Material app widget, and then two screens, main screen and the settings screen, and then we have this theme switcher widget which is nested to settings screen. So this theme switcher widget has a logic of changing the theme mode of our app, right? So if we need to pass that data from this widget to Material app of main.dart, then we need to pass that data first into the settings screen, and then settings screen should pass that data to main screen through navigator.pop, and then main screen should pass that data to main.dart's Material app, and only then Material app will change the theme of our app. That is a lot of hassle but still achievable. It might take some time, but this can be done. But imagine this theme switcher is nested into multiple widgets, and then passing the data from all these widgets is nearly impossible. So instead of passing data, it's better to have variables at the top of our app so that all widgets can have access to it and they can modify and listen to changes of those variables. So let me create a global variable here called isChecked, which is of Boolean type. And as all the widgets have access to it, Material app can watch for the changes and update theme mode according to it. And as all the widgets have access to it, this switch widget can modify this variable, and every widget watching this variable will get the update. And this global variable that we created acts like a state change too. So every widget watching this variable will get re-rendered when variable value is updated. So even if the widget is nested for 100 times and is watching for the change, it can still get the update. So this is how global state works in Flutter. So instead of passing data and lifting state every time, we make widgets watch for the changes of a global state variable and do whatever is necessary inside of that widget. For global state management in Flutter, we need package, and there are multiple packages that we can choose from. Let's have a look. So the first simple and most popular package is the provider package. It's simple and widely used. Although there are many other packages like Riverpod, Block, GetX and more, we are sticking with provider in this project. The reason is that it's easy to grasp and the concept it uses are the foundation to other state management packages. The good news is, once you understand provider, transitioning to another state management package becomes easier, as many of them share similar principles and concepts. Alright, so let's go ahead and install this provider package in our Flutter app. Open up terminal, get the package, hard restart the app and start debugging. So in providers state management, we have basically two main things, provider and a consumer. Provider is something that provides the data, and consumer is something that consumes the data or gets the data from the provider. Alright, it might be a little confusing, but don't worry, we'll work on it. So the first thing I want to do is to create a provider for providing the state value. For that, let's create a new folder and name it providers. So the provider that we need to create will hold the data related to theme. So I'll create a new Dart file and name it theme provider. Alright, and now in this file, let's create a new class with the name theme provider. So now we need a variable over here to track the theme mode of our app. So for that, let's create a new Boolean variable with the name is dark mode checked and set it to false for now. So this is just a normal class, but to make it a global state, we need to extend change notifier class, which can be imported from material.dart. Alright, so now that we have created a provider or a global state, we need to keep it at the top of our app so that all widgets can have access to it. For that, we need a provider package. So let's import package provider/provider.dart. Now to keep this theme provider at the top level, we need to wrap this My App, which is our main widget, with an special widget called change notifier provider. So wrap this My App with a widget, and this widget is change notifier provider. Alright, and this widget has one required argument, create. So this argument expects a callback function with the callback value context, and this function should return a change notifier class, and in our case it's the theme provider class. Alright, so let's use this theme provider over here. And here if the function has only one return statement inside of it, we can use arrow function here instead of this return and curly braces. Alright, this flat arrow returns anything on its right side to the function, so it's the same thing. So by doing this, we have finally placed this theme provider at the top of our app, and now every widget can access this provider and modify or get the value from this provider. And so now we need a consumer for getting the updates from the provider and for rebuilding the widgets if the value of provider changes. And in our case, this material app widget should look for the changes of this provider. So we need to wrap this material app widget with the consumer widget. But working with this consumer widget is complex, so we'll be taking a rather simple approach. So instead of wrapping this widget with the consumer, we will get provider directly in this build method. Now typically when you want to get the data from the class, you create an instance of that class in this way. Class name, variable name, which is equals to the class. But creating this class instance in this way will only get the variable value once and will not look for the state changes. So to make this widget a consumer and listen for the state changes, we need to access this theme provider class a little bit differently. So for that, let's create a variable theme provider. Now this is not a class, only the variable name, alright, which is equal to the provider, and instead of this create, we will be getting the context, so provider dot of, and we'll be passing this context of this build context, alright. And then we need to define which provider should this look up to and define it here, so theme provider. So now I'll be able to access the variable of this theme provider. So theme provider dot is dark mode checked. If it's true, then use the dark mode, else use light mode. And currently this variable in this theme provider is set to true, so we'll be getting the dark mode in our app. Now whenever this value changes in the provider, this build function will get recalled and the widget gets rebuilt. Keep in mind that you cannot initialize this provider here because it needs context. So always keep it inside of this build method, alright? In this way we can listen to state changes using provider in any widget throughout our app. So in the next lesson, we will be working on updating the state value in the provider and notify all consumers about it. So I'll see you at the next lesson.